Welcome to Jargon, a podcast bringing clarity to commonly misunderstood business concepts. We're debunking and simplifying the buzzwords and ideas plaguing today's business world and offering a fresh perspective on these topics.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Jargon. My name is Todd Boutte, and I have a very special guest today. Our guest is Emma Demmerle. She's a consultant with Trinergy. Thank you for joining me, Emma. We're going to talk about process documentation today. And don't get so excited. I'm sure that's, everybody's cheering because that sounds like such an exciting topic, but it really is. This is important to us. It's something we work into most projects and actually execute on as standalone projects. So we're going to talk about kind of what that is, why it's important to us, what we do to make process documentation successful and stick around with our clients. And Emma, if you don't mind, what is process documentation?
Yeah, Todd. So process documentation, it's a visual map that outlines the sequence of steps and tasks required to complete a business process successfully.
So what does that look like to people then?
It looks like a document that has boxes and pretty simple steps that go from one step to another, typically within a department.
So you mentioned a department just then, but right, this is the type of documentation that in reality could be applied anywhere. I mean, I could write a process documentation about, mowing my lawn as an example, right?
Yeah, you wanted to.
Great. Step 1, open the garage, go to the lawnmower, check for gas, right? This is the type of granularity that we're looking for?
Yep.
Okay. It depends. Okay. Well, we'll get into that it depends part because we have some thoughts as to what level of documentation is really appropriate in given processes, right? It can't be step 1, think about mowing the lawn, step 2, admire your work. That doesn't show me anything, right? But it probably doesn't need to get down into the level of measure each individual blade of grass because I'm not making aerospace technology. I'm just mowing my lawn.
Yeah.
So industry-wise, is this the type of thing that, we only do for, let's say, a manufacturing client?
No, we do this across all of our projects here at Trinergy.
Yeah, and so I think that's one of the most important things that we wanted to relay today. The idea of understanding fully how each process in a business unit functions is not unique to any given industry. It's just as valid for a company that purely does services, just as much as it is for a company that is working through complex chemical manufacturing or things like that. So another thing, that process documentation does is really offers visibility into every piece of a business. And so we have clients of different size and different needs, different maturity, right? And some of them have no process documentation. Some have outdated. Some are going through a period of growth. They're changing systems. So we do this for any number of reasons. So Emma, this has been a big part of your day-to-day for months now with a client of ours. Can you tell us about your project?
Yeah, of course. So this client, they originally didn't have many processes documented. So they reached out to us to provide a standardized view of all of their operations that looked like an documentation of their end-to-end business processes. And then this kind of second phase of the project has involved incorporating potential process improvements, additional technology advancements to really identify and address the gaps that are in their current state processes to then develop a future process that mitigates all of those identified areas of growth.
Nice. So how did this start? Like, what was your first business unit you worked with over there?
Human resources. Essentially, every sub-function of the HR department we touched on throughout that project.
Great. And did that result in kind of a singular document for each one of those and how they're connected?
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. So how did you go about kind of I know we're going to have a section kind of on how we do this, but specifically with HR, what did it look like to get started?
So that looks like setting up or identifying your project team. So typically in a project team, you want to have one main project sponsor or champion who understands and fulfills the purpose of the project. And then you also want to identify those individuals that are actually doing the work within the department that the steps cover. So you hold your kickoff meeting and then you really want to establish some guiding principles and the purpose for the project and why you're there. That always makes them feel a little bit more comfortable that you're not here to change anything up, that will affect their jobs.
Yeah, so we help them with that, right? So we help business units communicate as to why we're working through these projects. We help kind of get the buy-in rolling across a company. If we're going to need to involve other departments, so obviously we want them informed. You and I were talking earlier, consultants, contractors, when they're brought in, people aren't necessarily at ease. So we want to assist, with that process too. Let's move on to a little bit as to why we document processes. So not just why might a company would want to do it, but why does Trenergy emphasize this as part of our ERP selection projects and implementation projects, or why we even run it, as its own project, as with the client we're discussing now. This is our primary work with them.
Yes, that is.
So what was their needs? What was their use case? Why did they want to do this?
Yeah, so I think it could vary across departments, but they are in a period of growth right now. So they wanted better visibility into the different roles and resources that might be required in their future state and in consideration of this growth. So, for example, there was the procurement department that we addressed, and within that procurement department, they had recently hired an inventory manager. Well, previously, inventory and the activities regarding inventory were all under the guise of procurement. So, with the introduction of this new inventory manager, we wanted to establish standardized processes that the inventory manager had their say in and could really influence how those processes looked and then go in and implement them separate from procurement activities.
Right. So that gives them a really good chance at establishing a baseline for that department. Yeah. So that's an excellent reason to get this stuff on paper. Lots of companies work with business processes that are just stuck in someone's head somewhere. They're the only person, or maybe they're a part of a pair of people that knows how things really happen. A lot of times you find their direct supervisors and management, these other folks, they don't necessarily know truly what goes into the inputs and outputs of what they're asking their employees to do. So this is our opportunity, and we think an opportunity for every company to go look at that, talk to the folks that are actually working on the floor or in the HR office or building the widgets, whatever it might be, and asking them, what is it like for you? What is the sequence of events that takes place to accomplish this goal, right? And this type of documentation ensures that there's, repeatable steps and there's consistency in a process that can be handed off, right? Or it provides more consistent outputs that another business process might need as an input, right? So there's a lot of optimization and standardization that comes out of documenting these processes, right? And speaking to preventing this stuff from being stuck in employees' heads, it also provides big picture, right? It provides that knowledge to folks above that there's a lot going on in a process that they may have taken for granted. So when they're really looking for things, unfortunately, like cost-saving measures, if they have a better understanding of what each business unit is accomplishing, they can make better decisions.
Yeah.
So what are the other reasons we might, work through this with our clients?
Yeah, so kind of touching on your big picture overview that you just referenced, it helps with more strategic decision making. So, because the roles and responsibilities and tasks were outlined within those processes, the leadership team in charge of reviewing those processes can better understand, okay, what technologies or what resources should be added to improve this process.
Another piece we add to this puzzle along the way is of risks and gaps analysis. In most projects, we have that, but specifically with process documentation, you have a good opportunity to observe where things are breaking, to observe where information isn't being handed off, and then making adjustments to those processes to close those gaps. So, was that a big part of your findings with your client, or are they doing pretty good?
I would say with any process documentation project, there are going to be hidden risks that are kind of unveiled with this project and with this process documentation initiative. So, for example, kind of back to the procurement department, it was discovered that individuals outside of the procurement department were actually purchasing materials not to the standards or the policies of the company. So that posed a huge risk for For example, because these procurement policies were bypassed, it could lead to overspending or exceeding departmental budgets. And then additionally, it could lead to purchasing and procurement from unverified or unapproved suppliers.
Right, great finding. And then ideally, when you wrap this type of project or this phase of a bigger project, what you're left with is the processes that you're documenting being ideally, right? We're going to speak in utopia terms here, but those become the source of truth, right? This is now the process that's locked in. Everybody's agreed to that fact. So now you can come back in the future when there are problems or an issue like you've identified. It's much easier to figure out where things went wrong if everybody had an understanding of what the process should have been, as opposed to kind of making decisions on the fly or just doing whatever worked best in the moment. So this is the great chance to lock those things in. So I think we should chat a bit about kind of how we do this. What is, the Trinergy way here? Not that it's the only way to get it done, but it's the way we've been most successful doing this. So how do we get a company going around establishing effective process documentation?
Yeah, so I think in general, the first step of pretty much any project is defining the purpose and scope for why we are there, why are we documenting these processes, and what we are looking to achieve with this project. Next, we want to kick off things with a strong why, so kind of tying back to the scope and purpose of the project, making sure that the stakeholders engaged understand the why and that has been communicated to them.
Yeah, and then we'll throw another why on top of those whys, which is why do we do those things? Um, it's really about buy-in. No project can be successful truly unless there's buy-in at minimum from your project sponsor. That's kind of a given. But we want that buy-in, that ownership of the project to be kind of distributed into the company. We need every stakeholder of that, every person we're going to talk to understand really the concept of the project. So we're going to, like you said, Emma, define the purpose, define the scope, and then make sure that is delivered down. It doesn't just stay in the room where we did our kickoff meeting. And the good thing is about that, once you do that, you start to get other goals from department leads or process leads or other people in the company about what they're hoping to accomplish too. And you can, ideally adjust to those along the way. So the goals of the HR lead in documenting their process may be completely different than a procurement or manufacturing lead, and we can adjust accordingly. If everyone clams up and gets scared of, oh no, the consultants are here, it's not near as productive. So we think it's very important to establish buy-in and help the project be communicated down into the company.
Yeah.
And then I guess, one of our favorite things is then taking that and then building rapport with the team. I don't know about with you, but it's important for us to feel like we're part of the company while we're there.
Yeah. I think that's very important. Getting to the meeting early, being on site, asking about how their day is going. I think that's always a good way to transition into a meeting where you're going to be asking about their job and it might be a little bit more uncomfortable.
Really, and then coming full circle from that, kind of building rapport, establishing communication, getting the buy-in, that last piece of the puzzle is about validating our findings, right? So when you create these documents, you can't do that in a vacuum. Even among the department itself, if they have connections to other business process and other departments, you want to take that time to go, hey, here's our findings. This is what it looks like now. Let's iterate on this together. This is your thing. When we leave here, this belongs to you. All the roles, responsibilities, the names of the boxes, the decisions, this decision tree and the flow chart, all of these things now are yours. So, hey, business unit lead, functional lead, subject matter expert, whatever, let's validate together. And how does that, work for you guys? Do you find that to be kind of the most important step when closing these out?
Yes, definitely. You definitely want to validate across departments, especially when there is that interconnectedness across processes. It's really important to confirm that one process's outputs that are another department's processes inputs is correct and accurate and will serve the next department with the best and most complete data or information to help the process move a lot smoother.
Right. And there's a couple of smaller items that are important when closing these phases of a project out. But one of the ones I want to be sure we get on the record here is understanding these processes can't be static forever. Again, we've alluded to it. Sometimes this is a project that it's another pass at it. From 5-10 years in the past, maybe there was some documentation. Well, things have changed. Let's get caught up. Maybe there's some major shift in technology in the future that you need to be, going back to the well here and doing this again. So, be sure that these processes never are static. That's definitely another item.
Yeah, even I think within a year, processes can change as the company is growing and it's a fast-paced environment.
Yeah. Well, I think that's about what we needed to cover on process documentation, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd, for having me.
Absolutely. So if anyone out there would like to ask us any questions, please visit us at Trenergy.com. There is a lot of other articles and podcasts about what we do in this space, and we'd love to hear your feedback on that as we prepare these episodes. So thanks very much. See you next time on Jargon.